Right now, somewhere in your mind, there's a thought trying to take control. Maybe it's worry about tomorrow, regret about yesterday, or just the endless noise that never seems to stop. Tonight, you're going to discover the ancient secret that transformed the Buddha himself from a restless seeker into someone who mastered the art of inner peace. Over the next 3 hours, I'm going to share a path that's helped countless people, from stressed professionals to anxious parents, to anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by their own mind, finally break free from the tyranny of racing thoughts. And here's what makes this different. These teachings work even if meditation feels impossible for you, even if you've tried everything else, even if you think your mind is just too busy. The Buddha once said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." In these next few hours, you'll discover exactly how to take back control and become the master of your thoughts, not their prisoner. Before we begin, if it feels right, let me know in the comments where you're listening from, whether it's dawn in Tokyo or midnight in New York. We're all walking this path together. Find a comfortable position, maybe grab a warm blanket or settle into your favorite chair. Take one slow breath with me now. And as you exhale, know that something is already shifting. Your mind has been waiting for this moment. Let's begin at the very beginning with understanding the nature of your mind itself. Imagine for a moment that you're looking up at the sky on a perfect summer morning. The blue stretches out endlessly above you, clear and vast and open. And then, as you watch, a cloud drifts into view. Just one cloud at first, white and soft. Then another. Soon the sky fills with clouds. Some light, some dark, some racing across the expanse, while others seem to hang motionless. Now here's what I want you to notice. No matter how many clouds appear, no matter how dark they become, the sky itself never changes. The clouds can't stain it. They can't damage it. They simply pass through, temporary visitors in an infinite space. This is what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago when he sat beneath that fig tree in northern India. He saw that the mind, what he called citta in his ancient language, is like that vast sky. And our thoughts, our worries, our fears, our endless mental chatter, they're just clouds. Think about this morning when you woke up. Maybe the first thought that appeared was about something you needed to do today. That thought felt solid, didn't it? It felt real and permanent and true. But where is that thought now? It's gone. It passed. Another thought took its place, and then another, like clouds drifting across an endless sky. The Buddha taught that we suffer not because we have thoughts. Everyone has thoughts, just as every sky has clouds, but because we forget that we are the sky. We identify so completely with each passing cloud that we lose sight of our own spaciousness. We think we are the worry, We think we are the fear. We think we are the restless anxiety that won't let us sleep at night. But you're not. You've never been. You're the vast awareness in which all of these experiences arise and pass away. The sky doesn't worry about the clouds. It simply allows everything to be as it is, to come and go in its own time. This isn't just a beautiful metaphor. This is the actual nature of your mind. And when you begin to see this, when you start to recognize yourself as the sky rather than the clouds, something profound shifts. The thoughts don't necessarily go away. The clouds still come, but they lose their power to define you, to overwhelm you, to convince you that this stormy moment is all there is. I know what you might be thinking, but my thoughts don't feel like passing clouds. They feel heavy and real. I understand. When you're in the middle of anxiety or grief or anger, it doesn't feel temporary. But here's what the Buddha discovered. That feeling of permanence is itself just another cloud. It's just another thought that says, this will last forever. And that thought, like all thoughts, is impermanent too. The mind is everything, the Buddha said. What you think, you become. Not because thoughts are powerful in themselves, but because when you believe your thoughts completely, when you identify with them fully, you create your experience of reality from them. But the moment you recognize that you're not the thought, you're the vast awareness watching the thought, everything changes. This recognition is called mindfulness in Buddhism, not as a technique you do for 10 minutes in the morning, but as a way of seeing, a remembering of what you actually are beneath all the mental weather. It's already here. You don't need to create it or earn it. You just need to notice it. Notice the space in which all your thoughts are appearing. That awareness, that spacious, clear, unchanging presence, that's your true nature. That's what the Buddha called your Buddha nature. Not something mystical or far away, but the most intimate thing about you. The sky-like quality of your own mind, always present, always clear, even when the weather is terrible. Now let me tell you something else the Buddha discovered, something that might bring you even more relief. The mind isn't just like the sky, it's also like a river. There's an old saying, you can never step in the same river twice. A Greek philosopher said this around the same time the Buddha was teaching in India, and it's remarkable how they arrived at the same truth. But where the Greek was making a philosophical point, the Buddha was offering medicine for suffering. Watch a river sometime if you get the chance. Really watch it. See how the water moves continuously, how it's never the same from one moment to the next. Your mind is exactly like this. Not just your thoughts, but the whole experience of consciousness. It's a river that never stops flowing. Nothing about you is fixed. Nothing is permanent. You are not a static thing, but a dynamic process, a river of experience, constantly flowing, constantly changing, constantly becoming something new. This might sound unsettling at first. We like to believe we're solid, consistent, unchanging. But the Buddha's insight cuts through all of that. Everything is flow, everything is process, everything is change. And here's why this matters. If nothing is permanent, then suffering isn't permanent either. That thought that's been torturing you, it's part of the river, already flowing away, even as you grasp at it. That feeling of anxiety in your chest, it's moving, shifting, changing every single moment. That depression that convinced you it would never end, it's made of the same temporary flowing stuff as everything else in your experience. The river keeps flowing. You can't hold on to the water, and you can't hold on to any moment of experience. But here's what's beautiful. You can't hold on to the suffering either. No matter how intense it is right now, the river is already carrying it away. New water is always coming. New moments are always arriving. Change is the only constant, and that means hope is always possible. Sometimes the river of your mind flows gently, peacefully. Other times, maybe most times, the river is turbulent. Rapids and rocks and whirlpools, the mind racing, churning, crashing against itself. But even in those turbulent moments, the river is still flowing. The rapids aren't permanent. You're the flowing itself, the continuous movement of life through consciousness, the dance of change that can never be stopped or frozen. When you understand this deeply, something relaxes. You stop fighting the current. You stop trying to control the river's flow to make it be something other than what it is. You learn to move with it instead of against it. You learn to trust that no matter how rough these particular rapids are, the river will keep flowing, will carry you through, will eventually smooth out into calmer waters again. This is not resignation. This is not giving up. This is the profound wisdom of understanding the nature of reality itself, that everything changes, that nothing lasts, that both the river and you are already different than you were a moment ago. Let me give you another way to see this, one that might touch you even more deeply. Imagine you're standing at the edge of an ocean. Before you stretches water as far as you can see, vast and deep and powerful. And on the surface of this ocean, waves rise and fall continuously. Some waves are gentle, barely disturbing the surface. Others are enormous, towering walls of water that crash down with tremendous force. But here's what's true about every single wave. It rises from the ocean, it peaks, and it returns to the ocean. No wave lasts forever. No wave is separate from the water that forms it. Your thoughts are waves on the ocean of your consciousness. Each one rises, maybe a thought of worry about tomorrow, or a memory from your past, or a judgment about yourself. The thought rises, it peaks, it seems to fill your entire awareness for a moment. And then, if you don't grab onto it, if you don't feed it more energy, it naturally returns to the ocean from which it came. The problem is that we've been conditioned to identify with the waves. When a wave of anxiety rises, we say, "I am anxious." When a wave of sadness appears, we say, "I am sad." We collapse our entire identity into this one temporary movement on the surface of consciousness. But the Buddha's teaching invites us to recognize something extraordinary. You're not the wave. You're the ocean. You're the vast, deep consciousness in which all waves arise and fall. The wave of anxiety can rise, but it doesn't define you. The wave of sadness can peak, but it doesn't exhaust who you are. Beneath it, you remain vast, deep, unchanged. This is what the Buddha meant by the teaching of anicca, impermanence. But it's not just an idea to believe in. It's something you can observe directly in your own experience, right now, in this moment. Notice a thought arising in your mind right now. Don't try to create one. Just notice whatever thought is present. Maybe it's a thought about what you're reading. Maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, just notice it. Now notice, where did that thought come from? Did you decide to think it? Or did it simply appear, rising up from somewhere you can't quite identify? And now, as you turn your attention to the thought, what happens to it? Does it stay frozen, or does it shift, change, perhaps dissolve, as another thought takes its place? This is the direct experience of impermanence. Thoughts arise without your permission. They change without your control. They disappear without your effort. They're like waves on an ocean, and you, the real you, you're the ocean itself. The Buddha said that all conditioned things are impermanent. Everything that arises will also pass away. Every beginning contains an ending. Everything in your experience, every thought, every feeling, every sensation is temporary by nature. This isn't bad news. This is the best news possible. Because if everything is impermanent, then the difficult things are impermanent too. That wave of panic that feels like it will never end, it's already changing, already beginning to subside. That depression that convinced you this is just how life is now, it's impermanent too, already in the process of transforming into something else. You are not stuck. Nothing is fixed. The ocean of your consciousness is vast enough to hold any wave, and no wave can ever damage the ocean itself. Think about the last time you were really upset about something. In that moment, the upset felt total, didn't it? It felt like it was all there is, all you were. The wave had convinced you it was the entire ocean. But where is that upset now? It's gone, or at least diminished, transformed into something else. The wave rose, peaked, and returned to the ocean. New waves have come since then. The ocean continues, vast and deep, even as its surface is constantly moving, constantly transforming. This understanding changes everything about how you relate to your own mind. You stop fearing your thoughts because you know they're temporary. You stop clinging to pleasant states because you know they'll change too. You stop identifying with every passing mood because you've recognized yourself as something much larger. You're the ocean, not the wave. You're the sky, not the cloud. You're the river, not any particular moment of its flowing. And this recognition is the beginning of freedom. Now I need to tell you something that might sound strange at first, but stay with me, because this is where everything begins to make sense. The Buddha taught that we suffer not because bad things happen, but because of what we do with those bad things in our minds. There's an ancient story from the Buddha's teachings that illustrates this perfectly. A man was shot with a poison arrow. The arrow hit him, and it hurt. That pain was immediate and unavoidable. But instead of pulling out the arrow and treating the wound, the man stood there asking questions. "Who shot this arrow?" he demanded. "What family does he come from? Is he tall or short? What kind of bow did he use? Why did he shoot me? What did I do to deserve this? What does this mean about me?" And while he was asking all these questions, analyzing and theorizing, the poison continued spreading through his body. The Buddha told this story to illustrate something crucial about how our minds work. The first arrow, the initial pain, the difficult event, the loss or hurt, that arrow is unavoidable. Life shoots arrows at all of us. People get sick, relationships end, plans fall apart, death comes for everyone we love. This is the nature of existence. But here's what the Buddha said. We shoot ourselves with a second arrow, and usually a third and fourth. And these arrows, the ones we shoot at ourselves, these cause most of our suffering. The first arrow is the event itself. The second arrow is everything we think about the event. Someone criticizes your work. That's the first arrow. And yes, it stings. But then your mind takes over. They must think I'm incompetent. Everyone probably thinks that. I'll probably lose my job. I'm such a failure. Nothing ever works out for me. Each of these thoughts is another arrow, and you're shooting them all at yourself, one after another, until the original sting has become an entire war zone of suffering. Or you're stuck in traffic. That's the first arrow. But then, this always happens to me. I should have left earlier. Now everyone will be judging me. My whole day is ruined. Arrow after arrow after arrow, each one deepening the wound, making what could have been a minor inconvenience into a major crisis. The genius of the Buddha's teaching is that he's not telling you to avoid the first arrow. That's impossible. He's showing you that you have a choice about all the arrows that come after. You can learn to recognize when you're reaching for another arrow to shoot at yourself, and you can choose to put it down instead. This is not about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine. The first arrow hurts, and the Buddha never denied that. If someone you love dies, you will feel grief. If someone betrays you, you will feel pain. These are the first arrows, and they're part of being human. But the grief doesn't have to become, "I'll never be happy again." The pain doesn't have to become, "Nobody really loves me." These additions, these stories we tell about the pain, these are the second arrows, and we have more choice about them than we realize. There's a space, the Buddha taught, between what happens to us and how we respond to it. In that space lives our freedom. In that space, we can observe the impulse to shoot another arrow at ourselves and choose differently. We can feel the first arrow without adding to it, without multiplying it, without turning pain into suffering. Think about a time when you were able to do this. Maybe you burned the dinner you were making. The first arrow was the disappointment. But maybe instead of spiraling into self-criticism, you just laughed and ordered takeout. You felt the disappointment, acknowledged it, and then let it go without adding layers of judgment on top of it. That's the practice the Buddha is pointing to. Not eliminating the first arrow, that's not possible, but learning to recognize the moment when you're about to shoot the second one and choosing not to. Choosing to feel what you feel without making it mean something terrible about you, about your life, about your future. Choosing to let the wave of feeling rise and fall without turning it into a story that will haunt you for days or weeks or years. This brings us to one of the Buddha's most important teachings, one that's often misunderstood. The teaching of dukkha. If you've heard anything about Buddhism, you've probably heard that the Buddha taught that life is suffering. But this translation misses something crucial. The Buddha didn't say life is suffering. He said life contains dukkha, a word that's much richer than our word suffering can capture. Dukkha means something more like unsatisfactoriness, or the quality of things not quite being how we want them to be. It's the friction between reality and our expectations. Sometimes dukkha is obvious and intense, the suffering of loss or illness or heartbreak. But often it's subtle, the vague dissatisfaction with a perfectly fine day, the restlessness that comes from having everything you thought you wanted, but still feeling like something's missing. The Buddha identified 3 types of dukkha. The first is the dukkha of pain itself. This is the physical and emotional pain that comes from being alive in a body, in a world where things break and change and die. Headaches and heartbreak, illness and loss, these are unavoidable. The Buddha wasn't trying to eliminate this kind of dukkha because he knew it's woven into the fabric of life itself. The second type is the dukkha of change. Even pleasant experiences contain this subtle undercurrent of unsatisfactoriness because we know they won't last. You're enjoying a beautiful sunset, and even as you enjoy it, there's a tiny voice saying, "This will be over soon." Even happiness contains the seed of dukkha when we cling to it, when we try to freeze it in place, when we forget that change is the nature of all things. The third type is the dukkha that comes from trying to build something permanent out of impermanent materials. We try to construct a solid self out of thoughts and feelings that are constantly changing. We try to find ultimate security in a world where nothing is secure. This is like trying to build a house out of waves. The structure keeps dissolving because we're working with materials that can't be held or fixed in place. Now here's what's revolutionary. The Buddha didn't stop with identifying the problem. He was interested in showing you a way out. The Buddha said that your mind can be your best ally or your worst enemy. When you don't understand how your mind works, when you believe every thought, when you identify with every feeling, when you shoot yourself with second and third arrows, your mind becomes a source of endless suffering. But when you understand the mind's nature, when you learn to work with it rather than against it, your mind becomes the doorway to peace. The hope in the Buddha's teaching is this: suffering can end. Not the first arrow necessarily. Life will still include pain and loss. But the multiplication of that pain through our resistance and our stories, that can end. The dukkha we add on top of pain, that can be transformed. And it's not about becoming someone different or achieving some superhuman state. It's about seeing clearly what's already true, that thoughts are temporary, that you are not defined by your mental weather, that the ocean of your awareness is vast enough to hold any wave that arises. This is not about the addition of new beliefs or ideas, but the direct recognition of what's already present. The peace you've been seeking is not somewhere else, not in some future moment when everything finally works out. It's here, now, in the very awareness that's reading these words, in the spacious consciousness that's been present through every moment of your life. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are not your pain or your stories. You are the ocean itself, vast, deep, fundamentally at peace, beneath all the surface turbulence. And recognizing this is the beginning of the end of unnecessary suffering. There's a story the Buddha loved to tell, one that gets right to the heart of how we multiply our own suffering. A man once came to see the Buddha, furious and filled with rage. He had heard that the Buddha was teaching a different path than his own tradition, and he took this as a personal insult. So he went to where the Buddha was teaching, and in front of everyone gathered there, he began hurling insults at him. The Buddha sat quietly, listening to the man's angry words. His face remained calm, his body relaxed, his breath steady. The man shouted louder, trying to provoke a reaction. The Buddha's students were horrified, but the Buddha gestured for them to stay back. Finally, the man exhausted himself and fell silent. The Buddha looked at him gently and asked a simple question. If someone offers you a gift and you decline to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The man was confused. He stammered, "Well, I suppose it would still belong to the person who tried to give it." The Buddha nodded. "That is correct," he said softly. "And so it is with your anger and your insults. If I do not accept them, do they not still belong to you?" The man stood there, the truth of this landing in him like a stone dropped in still water. His anger had been his own burden to carry. The Buddha had simply declined to pick it up. This story has rippled through 25 centuries because it contains such a profound truth. Someone else's anger, criticism, judgment, it's only yours if you accept it. You can let it remain with them. You can recognize it as their experience, their suffering, and choose not to make it your own. Think about how often you've accepted gifts you didn't want. Someone says something hurtful, and you carry it with you for days, replaying it, letting it shape how you see yourself. Someone judges you, and you accept their judgment as truth, as evidence of your unworthiness. Someone projects their own fear onto you, and you pick it up and make it your problem. But the Buddha is showing you something liberating. You don't have to accept these gifts. You can see them for what they are: someone else's pain, someone else's confusion, and you can feel compassion for their suffering without making it your own. This doesn't mean becoming cold or building walls around your heart. It means becoming wise about what's yours to carry and what isn't. It means recognizing the difference between helpful feedback that can support your growth and toxic criticism that's really just someone else's unprocessed pain looking for a place to land. The man in the story came to the Buddha, carrying his anger like a burning coal. But who was getting burned while he carried it? The Buddha wasn't suffering. His mind was clear, his peace undisturbed. The man was the one burning, consumed by his own rage. And this is true of every negative thought or criticism that comes your way. It only has power over you if you accept it, if you take it in and make it part of your story about yourself. Otherwise, it remains outside you, acknowledged, perhaps considered, but not internalized, not believed, not allowed to define your sense of who you are. The Buddha's teaching here is not about arrogance or dismissing all feedback. It's about discernment. When someone offers you a gift, whether it's words or energy or emotions, you're allowed to examine it. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this mine to take on? And if the answer is no, you can decline the gift with the same calm the Buddha showed, recognizing that their anger or judgment remains with them. This understanding transforms how you move through the world. You become less reactive, less easily thrown off balance by other people's moods or opinions. You develop an inner stability that doesn't depend on everyone approving of you or understanding you or even being kind to you. You recognize that their response is about them, not about you, and you remain centered in your own clarity. Now let me show you something even deeper about this teaching. It's not just about other people's anger. It's about everything that's impermanent in your life, which is everything. The Buddha taught that all compounded things are subject to decay. Everything that comes together will eventually come apart. Everything that rises will eventually fall. Everything that begins will eventually end. This is not pessimism. This is simply the nature of reality. Look at a flower in full bloom. It's beautiful, perfect, alive with color and fragrance. And already, built into its very existence, is its eventual fading. The petals will fall, the stem will wither, the flower will return to the earth. This doesn't make the flower less beautiful. If anything, its impermanence makes it more precious, more worthy of full appreciation in this moment. Your thoughts and feelings follow the same law. They bloom, they peak, and they fade. Even the most intense emotion, the deepest grief, the most overwhelming joy, the most consuming fear, even these are governed by impermanence. They feel eternal while they're happening, as if this is just how things are now and will be forever. But they're not eternal. They can't be. Change is the only constant. And that means even your darkest moments contain within them the seeds of their own ending. A storm passes through. While it's here, it feels total. The thunder shaking everything, the rain drowning out all other sounds. But storms don't last. They can't. The very forces that create the storm also move it along, disperse it, transform it into clear skies and fresh air. Your mental and emotional storms follow the same pattern. That anxiety attack that feels like it will never end. It will end. It always does. That depression that's convinced you this is just how life is now. It's impermanent too. Already changing, even when it feels most stuck. That racing mind that won't let you sleep. It will eventually slow, will eventually quiet, will eventually release you back into rest. The Buddha isn't asking you to believe this as a comforting idea. He's inviting you to observe it directly in your own experience. Look back at your life. How many storms have you already weathered? How many times were you certain the pain would never end? And yet here you are. How many intense emotions have arisen, consumed you completely, and then passed away like clouds dissolving? This recognition of impermanence is not meant to make you sad. It's meant to free you. Free you from the grip of difficult experiences that convince you they're permanent. Free you from the desperate clinging to pleasant experiences that you know can't last. Free you from the exhausting attempt to control a reality that's fundamentally fluid and ever-changing. When you deeply understand impermanence, something relaxes in you. You stop fighting so hard against what is. You stop demanding that life be different than it is in this moment. You stop grasping at what's slipping away and resisting what's arriving. You begin to move with life instead of against it, to flow with change instead of breaking yourself, trying to prevent it. This is what the Buddha meant by letting go. Not that you stop caring or stop feeling or become indifferent, but that you stop trying to possess what was never meant to be possessed. You hold life lightly, the way you might hold water in your cupped hands, knowing that it will eventually flow away, and that's okay. That's how water is. The suffering of clinging is universal. We all do it. We grasp at relationships, trying to make them stay exactly as they are. We cling to youth, to health, to moments of joy. And then we suffer when these things inevitably change, because change is what they do, as inevitable as seasons turning or rivers flowing to the sea. But there's an alternative to this suffering. The alternative is in making peace with impermanence itself. In seeing that the very flowing, changing nature of reality is what makes life rich and alive and full of possibility. In recognizing that each moment is precious, precisely because it won't last, that each experience is worthy of full presence, precisely because it's unrepeatable. When you understand this, when you really get it, not just in your head, but in your whole being, the peace the Buddha spoke of becomes available. Not as something you need to achieve or create, but as something that's already here, already present. The stillness beneath all change, the constancy within impermanence, the ocean that remains, even as every wave rises and falls. This is where the practice begins. Not in eliminating thoughts, or stopping feelings, or transcending your humanity, but in clearly seeing what's true, that you're not what you thought you were, that your thoughts are not problems to be solved, but passing weather to be witnessed, that peace is not found by controlling your experience, but by understanding its nature. The mind you've been carrying, the mind you've been fighting with, this mind is not your enemy. It's simply been misunderstood. And in this understanding, in this clear seeing of what is, lies the beginning of freedom from unnecessary suffering. Understanding the nature of your mind is transformative, but understanding alone isn't enough. The Buddha didn't just teach philosophy, he taught practice. He gave us tools, specific methods, time-tested ways to work with the mind that have been helping people find peace for over 2,500 years. These practices aren't complicated. They don't require special equipment, or perfect circumstances, or years of preparation. They require only your willingness to begin, right where you are, exactly as you are. Let me tell you a story that illustrates the power of what we're about to explore together. There was once a young monk studying with the great Thai meditation master Ajahn Chah. This monk had been practicing diligently, sitting in meditation every day, following all the instructions he'd been given. But one night, a terrible storm rolled through the forest monastery where they lived. The wind howled through the trees with a sound like a freight train. Thunder shook the small wooden huts where the monks slept. Rain pounded against the roof so hard it sounded like stones falling from the sky. And this young monk lay in his bed, terrified, convinced that at any moment a tree would fall and crush him, or the wind would tear his hut apart. His mind raced with thoughts. This is it. I'm going to die. Why did I come to this forest? I should have stayed home where it's safe. The fear built and built until he couldn't bear it anymore. So, in the middle of the storm, he ran through the rain to Ajahn Chah's hut and knocked urgently on the door. The master opened it, completely calm, and looked at his drenched, trembling student with gentle eyes. "Teacher," the young monk gasped, "I'm so afraid. The storm is so violent. What should I do?" Ajahn Chah smiled and gestured for the monk to follow him. They walked out into the storm together, rain soaking them both, until they stood in an open area of the forest. The master pointed to a massive tree nearby. "Do you see that tree?" he asked, raising his voice above the wind. The young monk nodded, watching as the tree's branches whipped violently back and forth in the gale. It looked like the tree might snap at any moment. "Look at the branches," Ajahn Chah said. "See how they bend and sway. They move with the wind, yielding to its force. But now, look at the trunk. The monk shifted his gaze to the massive trunk of the tree. Despite the chaos in the branches above, despite the storm raging all around, the trunk stood absolutely still. Solid, unmoving, rooted deep in the earth. The storm is like your thoughts and emotions, Ajahn Chah explained. They come with great force. They create a lot of movement and noise. But if you can find the stillness at your center, if you can be like the trunk of the tree, the storm cannot harm you. The branches may bend, but the tree stands firm. The young monk understood. The fear didn't immediately disappear, but something shifted in him. He didn't need the storm to stop in order to find peace. He just needed to find the still point within himself, the place that the storm couldn't touch. This story points to something profound about the practice we're going to explore now. You don't need perfect conditions to find peace. You don't need your life to be calm, or your mind to be quiet, or everything to be going well. You just need to find your anchor, your center, the still trunk within you that remains steady, no matter what weather moves through. And in Buddhism, that anchor is your breath. The breath is always with you, always available, always happening, whether you're paying attention to it or not. The Buddha discovered this over 2 millennia ago and taught a practice called anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. This isn't just any breathing technique. This is the foundation of Buddhist meditation, the practice the Buddha himself used on the night of his enlightenment, the method he taught more frequently than any other. And its beauty lies in its utter simplicity. Anapanasati means being aware of the breath as it comes in and being aware of the breath as it goes out. That's it. No special breathing pattern to learn. No need to control or manipulate the breath. Just awareness of the breath exactly as it is. Why is this so powerful? Because your breath is the perfect bridge between your conscious mind and your unconscious processes. Most of the time, breathing happens automatically. You don't think about it. Your body just breathes. But unlike your heartbeat or your digestion, you can also consciously direct your breath whenever you choose. So when you bring gentle awareness to your breathing, something remarkable happens. You're simultaneously engaging your conscious attention and connecting with the autonomous wisdom of your nervous system. You're creating a meeting point between doing and being, between thinking and sensing, between the storm and the stillness. The Buddha taught that the breath is like an anchor for a boat. When storms come, the anchor keeps the boat from being swept away. The boat still moves, still rocks with the waves, but the anchor prevents it from being lost entirely. Your breath does the same thing for your mind. When thoughts are racing, when emotions are intense, when you feel like you're being swept away, returning to the breath brings you back. not to some perfect state of calm necessarily, but back to this moment, back to your body, back to something real and tangible and present. Here's how the Buddha taught it in the simplest possible terms. When you breathe in, know that you are breathing in. When you breathe out, know that you are breathing out. That's the instruction, complete and whole. You don't need to count your breaths, though you can, if that helps you stay focused. You don't need to control the length or depth of your breathing, though it will naturally settle as you practice. You just need to be with the breath, to feel it, to know it, to let your attention rest on this most basic fact of your existence, that you are breathing, that you are alive. In, you know you're breathing in. Out, you know you're breathing out. Now, here's what happens when you actually try this, and I want to prepare you with complete honesty. You'll bring your attention to your breath, and within seconds, literally seconds, your mind will wander. You'll suddenly realize you're thinking about what you need to do later today, or replaying a conversation from yesterday, or wondering if you're doing this correctly. The breath will be completely forgotten, and you'll be off somewhere else entirely. And this is the moment, this exact moment, when you notice your mind has wandered. This is actually the most important moment in the entire practice. Because what you do next determines everything. Most people judge themselves. They think, I'm so bad at this. I can't even focus on my breath for 10 seconds. What's wrong with me? But the Buddha taught something completely different. He taught that the moment you notice your mind has wandered is a moment of awakening. You were lost in thought, swept up in the current, and then, suddenly, awareness returned. You woke up. You remembered. You came back. That's not failure. That's success. That's the practice working exactly as it should. So when you notice your mind has wandered, you simply acknowledge it without judgment and gently return your attention to the breath. In, you know you're breathing in. Out, you know you're breathing out. You'll do this hundreds of times. Your mind will wander hundreds of times, and you'll return hundreds of times. And each return is a repetition of the most important skill you can develop, the ability to come back to the present moment, to notice when you've been swept away, to find your anchor again. This is not about achieving a perfectly quiet mind. It's about training in awareness, training in gentleness with yourself, training in the art of returning. The Buddha compared this to training a young puppy. When you're teaching a puppy to stay, it wanders off constantly. You don't beat the puppy or yell at it. You just gently, patiently, kindly bring it back, again and again. Your mind is like that puppy. It's not being bad when it wanders. It's just doing what minds do. Your job is not to stop it from wandering, but to keep kindly bringing it back home to the breath. Let's try this together right now. Just for a few moments, just to taste what this practice feels like. Wherever you are, let your body settle. You don't need to sit in any special position. Just be comfortable, alert, but relaxed. Let your eyes close if that feels okay, or keep them open with a soft gaze. Now bring your attention to your breath. Don't change it. Don't fix it. Just notice it. Feel the sensation of air moving in through your nose or mouth. Feel your chest or belly rising and falling. Just notice what breathing feels like in your body right now. Breathing in. You know you're breathing in. Breathing out. You know you're breathing out. If your mind wanders, and it will, that's completely fine. Just notice where it went, and without any judgment, bring it back to the breath. Like guiding a child back to their seat, gentle and patient. Breathing in, breathing out. Stay with this for just a few more breaths. Not trying to achieve anything or get anywhere. Just being with this most simple, most essential part of being alive. And when you're ready, let your awareness expand again. Notice how you feel. The point isn't the result. The point is that you practiced, you tried, you came home to yourself for a few moments. This is anapanasati. This is mindfulness of breathing. And this practice, as simple as it seems, is the doorway to everything else the Buddha taught. You can do this anywhere, anytime. Standing in line at the grocery store, waiting for your computer to start, lying in bed at night when sleep won't come, sitting in traffic, walking down the street. You always have your breath, which means you always have access to this anchor, this still point, this way home to the present moment. The Buddha taught that even 3 conscious breaths can change your state completely. 3 breaths where you're fully present, fully aware. That's sometimes all it takes to find your center again, to remember who you are beneath the storm of thoughts. So start there if you need to. Don't commit to 20 minutes of meditation if that feels overwhelming. Just commit to 3 conscious breaths. 1 when you wake up, 1 before you eat, 1 before you sleep. And watch what happens. Watch how these small moments of presence begin to create space in your life. Little islands of calm in the sea of constant doing and thinking. Watch how returning to your breath becomes easier, more natural, more automatic. The tree in the storm didn't need the weather to change. It just needed to remain rooted, to stay connected to its foundation. Your breath is that foundation. And no matter what storm is passing through your mind, you can always come back to it. Now, breathing consciously is powerful, but there's something even deeper that the Buddha taught. He called it sati, a word that's often translated as mindfulness, though that English word doesn't quite capture the richness of what sati actually means. Sati isn't just about paying attention, it's about remembering. Specifically, it's about remembering to be present, remembering to wake up from the trance of your thoughts, remembering who you actually are beneath all the mental noise. The Buddha didn't teach that you should empty your mind or stop your thoughts. That's a common misunderstanding that stops so many people from even trying meditation. They think the goal is a blank mind, and when they can't achieve that, they assume they're failing. But sati isn't about emptying anything. It's about bare attention. It's about being fully present with what is, exactly as it is, without adding layers of judgment or story or resistance on top of it. Think about the last time you ate something truly delicious. Maybe it was the first bite, and for just a moment, you were completely there, not thinking about anything else, not planning or worrying or remembering, just tasting, just experiencing, just alive to that moment. That's sati. That's mindfulness. Complete presence with what is. The Buddha taught that this quality of awareness can be applied to everything, not just to special meditation sessions, but to the most ordinary, mundane aspects of daily life. Because every moment, when you're fully present with it, becomes extraordinary. There's a beautiful teaching from the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh that illustrates this perfectly. He talks about washing dishes. Most of us, when we wash dishes, are not really washing dishes. We're thinking about what we're going to do after the dishes are done. We're planning the rest of our evening. We're replaying a conversation from earlier. We're anywhere but here, standing at the sink with our hands in warm water. Thich Nhat Hanh asks, if you're not present while washing the dishes, then when will you be present? After the dishes are done, so you can enjoy your tea. But then while drinking tea, won't your mind be somewhere else too? He teaches that washing dishes should be done to wash dishes, not to get them done so you can move on, but as an end in itself. Be fully present with the feeling of the warm water. Notice the texture of the soap, the smooth surface of the plate, the sound of water running. Be with each dish completely, as if washing this one plate is the most important thing in the world right now. When you do this, when you bring complete presence to something as ordinary as washing dishes, several things happen. First, the task itself becomes enjoyable rather than a chore you're rushing through. You might notice beauty in the play of light on water, or find pleasure in the simple physical sensations. Second, you're training your mind in presence. You're strengthening that muscle of awareness, practicing the art of being here rather than lost in thoughts. And third, you begin to realize that this moment, right now, is not separate from your life. This is your life. Not the exciting moments you're waiting for, but this, right here, right now, your hands in warm water, doing this simple task. The Buddha taught that most of us spend our lives waiting to be somewhere else. We're washing dishes so we can get to the good part. We're enduring the commute so we can get to work or get home. We're suffering through the week, waiting for the weekend. But life isn't happening later. It's happening now. And if you're not present for the dishes, you're not present for your life. This is what Sati teaches us, to wake up to where we already are. To remember that this moment is the only moment we actually have. So how do you practice this? How do you bring Sati into your daily life? Start with one thing at a time. We live in a culture that glorifies multitasking, but multitasking is the opposite of mindfulness. When you're doing multiple things at once, you're not fully present with any of them. Choose one activity each day where you commit to doing just that one thing. Maybe it's drinking your morning coffee. Not drinking coffee while checking your phone, just drinking coffee. Feeling the warmth of the cup, noticing the aroma, tasting each sip fully. Or maybe it's walking. The Buddha taught walking meditation as a formal practice, but you can bring this quality to any walk. Feel your feet touching the ground. Notice the rhythm of your steps. Sense the movement of your body through space. Eating is another beautiful opportunity for mindfulness. Try eating one meal with full attention. Look at your food before you eat it. Notice its colors, its textures. Smell it. Take a bite and really taste it. This is how monks eat in Buddhist monasteries, in complete silence, with total attention, making eating itself a meditation. Even waiting can become a practice. We usually hate waiting at red lights, in lines, on hold. We feel like we're wasting time, so we pull out our phones to fill the space. But the Buddha would see this differently. Waiting is not wasted time. It's an opportunity to practice presence. Next time you're waiting, try this. Instead of immediately reaching for distraction, just stand or sit there and be aware. Notice your breath. Feel your body. Observe your surroundings without judging them. This is revolutionary in our modern world. We're so conditioned to always be productive, always be doing. To just stand there and be present, to do nothing, feels almost rebellious. But it's in these moments that we remember how to simply be. There's another aspect of sati that the Buddha emphasized: the power of silence. In our world, silence has become rare and uncomfortable. We fill every moment with sound, music, podcasts, TV, the constant ping of notifications. We're afraid of silence because in silence we might have to face ourselves. But the Buddha taught that silence is medicine. Not the absence of sound necessarily, but the absence of unnecessary stimulation. Time when you're not consuming content or information or entertainment. Space where you can hear your own thoughts, feel your own feelings. You don't need to go on a silent retreat. You can start with just a few minutes each day. Maybe the first 5 minutes after you wake up, before you check your phone, or the last 5 minutes before sleep, or a quiet walk without headphones. In silence, without distraction, you might notice that your mind is quite noisy. Thoughts churning, emotions bubbling up, worries demanding attention. This can be uncomfortable at first, but this is exactly what the practice is for. Learning to be with your own experience without immediately reaching for something to make it go away. The Buddha compared the mind to a glass of muddy water. When you keep stirring it, the water stays murky. But when you let the glass sit still in silence, the mud gradually settles and the water becomes clear. Your mind is the same. When you give it space, when you stop constantly stirring it, it naturally settles. Clarity emerges not because you've done something to create it, but because you've stopped doing the things that obscure it. This is sati, mindfulness, presence, remembering to be here, now. It's not complicated, but it is profound. Because when you're truly present, even for just a few moments, you touch something real. You make contact with life itself, not your thoughts about life, but the actual living reality of this moment. And in that contact, there's peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped being at war with what is. You've stopped living in your head, and you've landed here, in the only place where peace has ever existed, right now. The practices of conscious breathing and mindful presence are foundational, but the Buddha taught something even more subtle and transformative. He taught us how to watch our own thoughts without getting caught in them. This practice is called vipassana, which means clear seeing. While sati is about being present with what is, vipassana is about seeing through the illusions your mind creates, about recognizing thoughts as thoughts rather than as reality. Remember when we talked about clouds and sky? Vipassana is the practice of actually experiencing yourself as the sky while the clouds pass through. It's learning to watch thoughts the way you might watch cars driving past your house. You see them, you're aware of them, but you don't jump in and go for a ride. This is not what most people do with their thoughts. Most of the time, a thought appears, and immediately you're identified with it, caught up in it. A worry arises. What if this goes wrong? And suddenly you're imagining scenarios that haven't happened, feeling emotions about events that don't exist yet. A judgment appears. I'm not good enough. And before you know it, you're gathering evidence for this claim, remembering every mistake, building a case against yourself. We don't notice we're doing this. We think we are our thoughts. So when a thought appears, we automatically believe it and follow it. It's like having a radio in your head that's constantly broadcasting, and you never question whether what it's saying is true. You just accept it all as reality. Vipassana teaches you to step back and watch the broadcast without believing everything you hear. The Buddha described thoughts as visitors who come to your house. Some visitors are pleasant, happy memories, inspiring ideas. Some visitors are unpleasant, worries, regrets, harsh judgments. But they're all just visitors. They come, they stay for a while, and then they leave. The problem is that we treat every visitor like they're moving in permanently. A thought of anxiety knocks on the door, and we not only let it in, we give it the master bedroom. We rearrange our whole house around it. But it's not permanent. It's just passing through. All thoughts pass through. The practice of Vipassana is learning to let them pass, not by pushing them away or fighting with them. That just creates more struggle. But by recognizing them as temporary phenomena, as clouds in the sky, as waves on the ocean, as visitors who will leave on their own if you don't invite them to stay. Here's how you practice this. Sit quietly, as you might for breath meditation. But instead of focusing only on the breath, expand your awareness to include your thoughts. Don't try to stop thinking. That's impossible. Instead, just notice when thoughts arise. Watch them the way you might watch clouds drifting across the sky. A thought appears. I need to call my mother. Notice it. You don't need to do anything about it right now. Just see it as a thought. Watch where it goes. Does it lead to other thoughts? Or does it dissolve on its own when you don't feed it? Another thought arrives. I'm not doing this right. There it is, a judgment thought. Notice it, but don't get involved in a conversation with it. Just see it as a thought. Let it be there, and watch as it eventually fades. The key is what the Buddha called non-identification. You're not trying to stop thoughts or change them. You're simply recognizing that you are not them. There's you, the aware presence, the consciousness that notices thoughts. And there are thoughts, the passing mental events that arise and fade in that consciousness. These are not the same thing. This might sound abstract, but you've actually experienced this many times. Have you ever had a strong craving for something, then gotten distracted, and when you remembered the craving later, it was gone? That's proof that cravings are just temporary thoughts. They feel solid and urgent when you're identified with them, but when you're not paying attention to them, they dissolve on their own. Vipassana practice makes this obvious in real time. You sit, you watch your thoughts, and you see directly that they come and go. They arise from nowhere, they peak, they dissolve. You don't make them come, you don't make them go. They have their own natural rhythm. And as you watch, something shifts in your relationship to them. They lose their grip on you. They become less solid, less believable, less able to sweep you away into their stories. There's a teaching story that illustrates this beautifully. A student came to his meditation teacher, frustrated. "Teacher," he said, "I've been trying to meditate, but my mind won't stop thinking. Thoughts just keep coming. I can't seem to quiet my mind." The teacher smiled and said, "Let me ask you something. When you're standing by a river, do you try to stop the water from flowing?" The student looked confused. "No, of course not. That would be impossible. The river flows because that's what rivers do." "Exactly," the teacher said. "And your mind produces thoughts because that's what minds do. The practice is not to stop the river, it's to stop jumping in and being carried away by the current." The student sat with this for a moment. "So what do I do when thoughts come?" he asked. "Watch them," the teacher said simply. "Watch them the way you watch a river flowing past. Let them come, let them go. Don't push the river, but don't jump in either. Just stand on the bank and watch the water flow by." The student tried this, and slowly he began to understand. He stopped fighting with his thoughts, stopped judging himself for thinking. He just watched. And in the watching, he discovered space. He discovered that he was not the river of thoughts. He was the one standing on the bank, the awareness itself, peaceful even as the river flowed endlessly past. This is the practice of non-attachment that's so central to Buddhism. Attachment, what the Buddha called upadana, is about being attached to thoughts, to ideas, to stories, to mental content that you grasp onto and identify with. When you're attached to a thought, you believe it completely You think it's telling you the truth about reality. You act on it. You make decisions based on it. You let it determine your emotional state. But when you practice non-attachment, you hold thoughts more lightly. You recognize them as one possible perspective, one way of interpreting the situation. You can consider the thought without being owned by it. This doesn't mean you become detached or cold. Non-attachment is not the same as not caring. It's caring deeply while also recognizing that your thoughts about the situation are not the situation itself, and you don't have to be defined by this particular mental state. Let's practice this right now, just for a moment. Sit comfortably and close your eyes if that feels okay. Take a few conscious breaths to settle yourself. Then simply open your awareness to whatever thoughts are present. Don't try to think particular thoughts or stop any thoughts. Just notice what's here right now. Maybe it's a thought about what you're reading. Maybe it's something completely unrelated. Whatever it is, just notice it. Now imagine that each thought is written on a leaf floating down a stream. You're standing by the stream, watching the leaves float by. One leaf comes into view. I need to do this thing later. Watch it float past. Another leaf appears. I wonder if I'm doing this right. Let it drift by. You're not grabbing the leaves or throwing them away. You're just watching them float past in the stream of your consciousness. Notice how some thoughts try to grab your attention. That's okay. Just notice that pull and gently return to watching. You don't have to go with the thought. You can just let it be there and keep watching. Stay with this for a few more moments. Just watching, just witnessing, just being the awareness that notices thoughts without being caught by them. And when you're ready, open your eyes. That's Vipassana. That's insight practice. And when you do this regularly, something profound happens. You realize, in your direct experience, that you are not your thoughts. This realization is incredibly liberating. Because if you're not your thoughts, then your anxious thoughts don't make you an anxious person. Your self-critical thoughts don't define your worth. Your worried thoughts don't determine your future. They're just thoughts, temporary, changing phenomena, passing through the vast space of your awareness. And you, the real you, are that space, not the passing weather. Everything we've explored comes together in what the Buddha called bhavana, the cultivation of the mind through meditation. Bhavana includes two main types of practice that work together like two wings of a bird: samatha, which means calm or tranquility, and vipassana, which we've touched on as clear seeing or insight. Samatha practice is about developing concentration, about training your mind to stay focused without wandering. This is where your breath practice fits in. When you keep returning your attention to the breath, you're building your capacity for sustained attention, for mental stability, for calm presence. Think of samatha like going to the gym for your mind. Each time your mind wanders and you bring it back, you're doing a mental rep, building the muscle of focus. At first it's hard. Your mind wanders constantly. But over time, with consistent practice, your mind becomes steadier, more stable, more able to rest in one place. The traditional object of samatha practice is the breath, but the Buddha taught that you can use other objects too. A visual object like a candle flame, a sound like a bell, or even a concept like loving kindness. The key is choosing one object and returning to it again and again. When you practice samatha, you'll encounter obstacles. The Buddha identified two main ones: restlessness and drowsiness. Restlessness is when your mind is too energized, jumping from thought to thought, unable to settle. You feel agitated, impatient. Your thoughts race. Your body wants to move. When restlessness comes, the instruction is to work with it skillfully. Take some deeper breaths. Relax your body consciously. Maybe stand up and do some slow walking meditation. Drowsiness is the opposite. Your mind is too sluggish, too dull. You feel sleepy. Your attention keeps fading. This is especially common if you're practicing lying down or if you're tired. When drowsiness comes, you need to energize your practice. Sit up straighter, open your eyes, take some quicker, sharper breaths. The goal is to find that middle ground, alert but relaxed, focused but not tense. The Buddha compared this to tuning a stringed instrument. If the string is too tight, it will break. If it's too loose, it won't make a sound. It needs to be tuned just right to create beautiful music. Your practice is the same. You need to find your own right balance, and that balance might be different from day to day. Learning to tune yourself is part of the practice. The fruit of samatha practice is a mind that's calm, stable, and concentrated. When you've developed strong samatha, you can rest your attention on any object for extended periods without effort. Your mind feels peaceful, unified, collected, rather than scattered. But samatha alone is not enough, the Buddha taught. You can have a very calm mind and still not understand the nature of reality, still not be free from suffering. That's where vipassana comes in, the insight practice that sees through the illusions that cause suffering. While samatha is about calming the mind, vipassana is about investigating it. While samatha focuses your attention, vipassana opens your awareness to observe what's actually happening in your experience, moment by moment. In vipassana practice, you're not trying to create any particular state. You're trying to see clearly what's already there. You observe sensations in your body, how they arise, how they change, how they pass away. You observe feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and how you react to them. You observe thoughts and emotions, how they come from nowhere, how they build and peak, how they dissolve back into nothing. And through this observation, you begin to see directly the three characteristics the Buddha taught: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. You see that everything is impermanent. Nothing in your experience stays the same, even for a moment. You see that clinging to anything impermanent leads to suffering. And you see that there's no fixed self behind all this, just a flowing process, a river of experience. These insights don't come from thinking about them. They come from direct observation in meditation. You sit, you watch your experience with clear attention, and these truths reveal themselves naturally. The beautiful thing is that samatha and vipassana support each other. When your mind is calm from samatha practice, you can see more clearly in vipassana. And when you develop insight through vipassana, your mind naturally becomes calmer because you see through the thoughts that normally agitate you. So how do you actually establish a daily practice? Because understanding these techniques intellectually is one thing, but actually doing them consistently is what creates transformation. The Buddha's advice was simple: start small and be consistent. 5 minutes every day is better than an hour once a week. It's the regularity that matters. Choose a time that works for you. Many people find that first thing in the morning is best, before the day's demands take over. But if evening works better for you, that's fine too. The important thing is consistency. Same time, same place, if possible. Create a simple space for practice. You don't need anything elaborate, just a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed. Maybe a cushion to sit on, or a chair if sitting on the floor is uncomfortable. Start with just 5 minutes. Set a timer so you don't have to worry about how long you've been sitting. Spend those 5 minutes with your breath, or with open awareness, or alternating between both. When the timer goes off, you're done. Don't push yourself to sit longer if you don't want to. Just do your 5 minutes consistently every day. After a week or two, if 5 minutes feels comfortable, add another 5 minutes. Build gradually until you find the length that feels sustainable for you. For some people, that might be 10 minutes. for others 30. There's no right answer. The right amount is whatever you'll actually do every day. And here's the most important thing. Be patient with yourself. Don't expect dramatic results immediately. Meditation is not like taking a pill where you feel different right away. It's more like planting a garden. You prepare the soil, you plant the seeds, you water them consistently, and then you wait. You trust that something is growing even when you can't see it yet. Some days your practice will feel clear and peaceful. Other days it will feel difficult and frustrating. Both kinds of days are valuable. Both are practice. The Buddha taught that there are no bad meditation sessions. Even the sessions where your mind won't stop racing are building your capacity for awareness. Over time, weeks, months, you'll start to notice changes. Maybe you respond less reactively to stress. Maybe you catch yourself before spiraling into anxiety. Maybe you have more moments of presence during your day. Maybe you feel more spacious inside. These changes are subtle but profound. They're not dramatic transformations. You're still you, still dealing with the same life circumstances. But your relationship to those circumstances shifts. You have more choice in how you respond. You're less caught, less reactive, more able to find the still point even when everything around you is moving. This is what the Buddha offered. Not an escape from life, but a way to meet life with more wisdom, more compassion, more presence. Not a technique to fix everything, but a practice that helps you work skillfully with whatever arises. And it all starts with just sitting down and taking one conscious breath, then another, building moment by moment, breath by breath, a foundation of presence that will support you through everything life brings. Understanding the mind is powerful. Practicing presence is transformative. But now comes the real work, bringing these teachings into your actual life, into the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of daily existence. The Buddha didn't teach meditation just so you could have peaceful moments on a cushion. He taught it so you could live with more freedom, more wisdom, more peace in every moment. He wanted you to find that still center not just when things are calm, but especially when life is throwing everything at you at once. So, let's talk about how to actually do this. How to take these ancient teachings and make them work in your modern life with all its demands and challenges and unexpected turns. There's a story about a Zen master that cuts right to the heart of one of life's deepest challenges. This master had a favorite teacup. It was a beautiful cup, simple but elegant, perfectly weighted in the hand. Every morning he would drink his tea from this cup, appreciating its smooth glaze, the way it held warmth, the satisfaction of wrapping his fingers around it. His students noticed how much he loved this cup, how carefully he handled it, how he would sometimes just look at it with obvious pleasure. One day, a student asked him, "Teacher, you seem very attached to that cup. I thought we were supposed to practice non-attachment. How can you love something so much and still be free from attachment?" The master smiled and held up the cup, turning it slowly in the light. "I love this cup very much," he said. "I appreciate its beauty every day. I take pleasure in using it. But you see, in my mind, this cup is already broken." The students looked confused. The cup was clearly intact, solid, unbroken. "What do you mean?" the student asked. The master explained, "I know that one day someone will knock this cup off the table, or it will slip from my hands, or it will crack from temperature change, or I will die and someone else will break it. This cup's breaking is inevitable. It's already broken. I just get to enjoy it until the breaking becomes visible." He paused, letting this sink in. "Because I know it's already broken, I appreciate it more deeply now. I'm not desperately trying to preserve it forever, which is impossible. I'm not living in fear of the day it breaks. I'm just here with it now, grateful for its presence while it lasts. And when it does break, and it will, I'll be sad, yes, but I won't be shattered, because I've already accepted its impermanence. I'm living in peace with what is, not in fear of what will be." This teaching goes so much deeper than cups. It's about everything in your life that you love, everything that matters to you, everything you're afraid to lose. Your relationships, they're already broken. Not because anything is wrong with them now, but because all relationships change and eventually end, whether through growing apart or death. Every person you love, you will lose eventually, one way or another. This isn't pessimism, it's reality. It's the truth of impermanence we talked about earlier. Your health, it's already broken. Right now you might feel strong and capable, but your body is aging every single day, moving toward decline and eventual death. This isn't morbid, it's simply true. Your youth is already gone or going. Your physical abilities will diminish. Your body will fail you in ways large and small. Your plans, your career, your sense of identity, all already broken. Life will not unfold the way you think it will. Things you're counting on will fall through. Opportunities you're sure are yours will slip away. The version of yourself you're trying to become might never arrive. Now, you might be thinking, this is incredibly depressing. Why would I want to think this way? But here's what's remarkable. When you truly understand that everything is already broken, You become more free, not less. You appreciate what you have now because you're not taking it for granted, not assuming it will last forever. You love more deeply because you know this love is temporary, precious, unrepeatable. You worry less about losing things because you've already accepted that loss is inevitable. You stop trying to control what can't be controlled and start focusing on what you can control: your response, your presence, your appreciation in this moment. The Zen master could enjoy his cup more fully because he wasn't desperately clinging to it, trying to keep it safe from all harm, living in constant anxiety about its breaking. He held it lightly, with love, but not with desperation. And that's the secret to living with an open heart in an impermanent world. This brings us to one of the most powerful distinctions in all of Buddhist teaching: the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. You've probably heard some version of the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. This isn't originally Buddhist, but it captures a truth the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. What can you control? Very, very little. You cannot control other people, what they think, what they feel, what they do, how they treat you. You cannot control circumstances, the weather, the traffic, the economy, global events, random accidents. You cannot control your body entirely. It will get sick. It will age. It will die. You cannot control the past. It's already happened and cannot be changed no matter how much you replay it. You cannot control most of the future. Too many variables, too many unknowns, too much uncertainty. So what can you control? Your response. You can control how you meet what happens. You can control the attention you give to different thoughts. You can control whether you practice or don't practice. You can control your effort, your intention, your attitude. You can control whether you shoot yourself with second and third arrows or just feel the first arrow and let it be. Remember that teaching about the 2 arrows? The first arrow is what happens. That's usually outside your control. Someone criticizes you, you get sick, you lose something you value. The first arrow flies and hits you, and there's nothing you could have done to prevent it. But the second arrow, the one you shoot at yourself with your thoughts and reactions and stories, that one is completely within your control. You get to choose whether to add suffering on top of pain, whether to multiply the difficulty with resistance and rumination, whether to turn a moment of discomfort into hours or days or years of anguish. This is the difference between pain and suffering that's so central to Buddhist teaching. Pain is inevitable. It's part of being alive in a body, in a world where things break, and change and disappoint. Suffering is optional. It's what we add on top of pain when we resist it, when we demand that reality be different than it is, when we fight against what we cannot change. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It doesn't mean you become passive or give up or stop trying to make things better. It means you accept what is as the starting point, the reality you're working with, rather than exhausting yourself fighting against facts. If you're stuck in traffic, acceptance means acknowledging, yes, I'm in traffic right now. This is what is. It doesn't mean you like it, or you think it's okay, or you'll never try to avoid traffic in the future. It just means you're not adding layers of frustration and anger and story on top of the basic fact of being stuck. You're not in traffic and in resistance to traffic. You're just in traffic, dealing with it as skillfully as you can. If someone you love is sick, acceptance means acknowledging the reality of their illness without pretending it's not happening or spiraling into catastrophic thinking about worst-case scenarios. You feel your fear, your grief, your love, but you don't add on, "This shouldn't be happening," or "Life is so unfair," or "I can't handle this." You just stay with what is and respond from there. This is active peace, not passive defeat. You're meeting life as it actually is, with clear eyes and an open heart, which allows you to respond wisely rather than react blindly. So how do you practice this? How do you learn to let go of what you cannot control? Start by noticing what you're gripping. Throughout your day, pay attention to moments of tension, frustration, anxiety, anger. These are usually signs that you're trying to control something beyond your control. You're gripping, clenching, holding on tight to how you think things should be. When you notice this gripping, and you can often feel it physically in your body, as tension in your jaw, your shoulders, your belly, pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now that I actually cannot control? Maybe you're trying to control someone else's opinion of you. Maybe you're trying to control how a situation turns out. Maybe you're trying to control your own thoughts or feelings, demanding that you feel differently than you do. Just identify what you're gripping. Then ask, what can I actually control in this situation? Usually the answer is, my response, my attitude, my next action. That's it. That's all you ever really control. Then, and this is the practice, consciously release your grip on what you cannot control. You might do this physically. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, open your hands. You might do it with your breath. Exhale slowly and imagine releasing the need to control this thing. You might do it with words. I release my need to control this. I accept what is. This doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you stop exhausting yourself, pushing against doors that are locked, trying to change things beyond your influence, demanding that reality be other than it is. You conserve your energy for what you can actually affect: your own mind, your own actions, your own cultivation of peace and wisdom. I knew someone, let's call her Maria, who practiced this teaching when her adult son was struggling with addiction. She couldn't control whether he used drugs. She couldn't control whether he called her back. She couldn't control the choices he made or the path his life took. For years, she exhausted herself trying anyway, calling constantly, showing up uninvited, attempting to manage his life, lying awake at night worrying. Then she discovered this teaching about the two types of arrows, about control and acceptance. She realized she'd been shooting herself with dozens of arrows on top of the pain of watching her son suffer. She couldn't stop the pain. Loving someone who's struggling is painful, and that's the first arrow. But she could stop adding all the other arrows: the guilt about what she should have done differently, the shame about having a son with addiction, the constant anxiety about future disasters, the resentment at him for causing her worry. She practiced letting go of what she couldn't control, his choices, and focusing on what she could control, her own responses, her own boundaries, her own mental health. She told him she loved him and would support his recovery if he chose it, but she would no longer try to manage his life for him. She started going to therapy, practicing meditation, building a life that wasn't centered entirely on his crisis. Did her son immediately get better? No. That's not how this works. But something profound changed in Maria. She found peace even in the middle of this painful situation. She stopped being consumed by something she couldn't control and started living again, present and awake to her own life, even while holding space for her son's struggle. This is the power of truly understanding what's yours to carry and what isn't. It doesn't make difficult situations disappear, but it stops you from making them infinitely heavier than they need to be. Now let's talk about something that challenges almost everyone: criticism, judgment, other people's opinions. Remember that story we explored earlier? The man who came to the Buddha hurling insults, and the Buddha asked him, if someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does the gift belong? This teaching is so practical, so immediately useful in daily life, that I want to give you specific ways to apply it. Every day, people will offer you gifts you didn't ask for. A colleague will make a sarcastic comment about your work. A family member will criticize your choices. A stranger on the internet will leave a harsh judgment. A friend will offer unsolicited advice wrapped in concern. These are all gifts, packages of their own thoughts, feelings, projections, insecurities, pain. and you get to decide whether to accept them. The Buddha's question transforms everything. To whom does this belong if I don't accept it? Someone says you're not good enough. That's their thought, their assessment, their internal experience. If you don't pick it up and make it yours, if you don't unwrap that package and try it on and carry it with you, then whose thought is it? Theirs. Still theirs. Always theirs. Now, this doesn't mean you dismiss all feedback, or become arrogant, or stop listening to others. The Buddha taught something very useful here too, the practice of right speech. Right speech is one of the steps on the Eightfold Path, the Buddha's guide to living wisely. And while it's usually taught as guidance for how you should speak, it's equally valuable as a filter for how you receive what others say. The Buddha taught 3 questions to ask before speaking, and you can ask these same 3 questions before accepting what others say to you. First, is it true? Not, do they believe it's true, or does it feel true, but is it actually objectively true? Someone says you're lazy. Pause. Check. Is that actually true? Or is it one person's interpretation, colored by their expectations, their frustration, their own issues? If it's not true, you don't need to accept it. You can hear it, acknowledge that they said it, and let it remain theirs. Thank you for sharing your perspective, and then move on without making their misperception your problem. If it is true, if there's something accurate in the criticism, then that leads to the second question: is it kind? Or more precisely, is it offered with the intention to help or the intention to hurt? Useful feedback exists. Sometimes people point out things that are true and that you need to hear. A good friend might say, "Hey, I've noticed you've been really short-tempered lately. Are you okay?" That's true, and it's offered with care, with the intention of helping you see something you might have missed. But sometimes, criticism is true, but weaponized. It's offered not to help, but to wound, to diminish, to establish dominance. The content might be accurate, but the delivery is cruel. The timing is calculated to hurt. The intention is hostile. You can acknowledge the truth in it without accepting the package it came wrapped in. You can take the useful information, "Yes, I have been short-tempered," without taking on the judgment or shame or hostility that came with it. You can sort through the gift and keep only what serves you. And third, is this feedback useful, or is it just noise? Lots of people have lots of opinions about how you should live your life. Most of those opinions are unnecessary. They're not based on deep knowledge of your situation. They're not particularly insightful. They're just someone's reflexive reaction, their projection of their own values onto your choices. Someone thinks you should have a different job, live in a different place, make different choices about your relationships, or your money, or your time. Is this necessary information? Does it actually help you? Or is it just someone else's preference that they're trying to impose on your life? If it's not necessary, if it's not actually useful to you, you don't need to accept it. You can smile, nod, let it pass right through you, like wind through an open window. These three filters, true, kind, necessary, help you develop what the Buddha called equanimity in the face of praise and blame. Equanimity doesn't mean you don't care what people think. It means your sense of self, your peace of mind, your direction in life aren't determined by other people's opinions. You remain centered, stable, rooted in your own clarity about who you are and what matters to you. Think of yourself as a mountain. Weather patterns move around the mountain. Storms, sunshine, wind, calm. The mountain doesn't change based on the weather. It doesn't become a different mountain when it rains or when the sun shines. It stands solid, rooted deep in the earth, letting the weather be whatever it is. Other people's opinions are weather patterns. Some days they praise you, sunshine. Other days they criticize you, storms. Neither changes who you actually are. You're the mountain, stable and present, letting the weather move through without being defined by it. So when criticism comes, and it will come, it comes for everyone. Practice this. First, pause. Take 3 breaths before responding or reacting. In those 3 breaths, you create space between the stimulus and your response. You give yourself a chance to choose wisdom over reaction. Second, check in with yourself. Is this criticism about them or about me? Often criticism tells you more about the person giving it than about you. They're projecting their own insecurities, expressing their own frustration, venting their own pain. It might sound like it's about you, but really, it's about them. If you can see this clearly, if you can recognize that someone else's anger or judgment or harsh words are really expressions of their own suffering, then compassion becomes possible. You don't have to take on their pain while still feeling compassion for the fact that they're in pain. Third, decide consciously whether to accept this gift. Run it through those 3 filters: true, kind, necessary. Take what's useful, if anything, and leave the rest. And fourth, respond rather than react. Reaction is automatic, unconscious, driven by emotion and habit. response is chosen, conscious, aligned with your values and intentions. You might respond with curiosity. Can you tell me more about what you mean? You might respond with boundaries. I appreciate your perspective, but I'm confident in my choice. You might respond with silence, letting the criticism hang in the air without needing to defend or explain yourself. Or you might respond with genuine consideration if the criticism contains truth you need to hear. But whatever you do, you're choosing your response rather than being controlled by someone else's words. You're standing firm in your own center, like that tree in the storm, letting the branches bend while the trunk remains solid. This practice transforms your relationship with criticism from something that devastates you into something that simply happens, that you can meet with wisdom and equanimity and peace. Now I want to teach you about two beautiful qualities that the Buddha emphasized, qualities that can completely transform your daily experience of life. The first is gratitude, which in Pali, the language of the earliest Buddhist texts, is called katanuta. This word literally means knowing what has been done, remembering the kindness you've received, acknowledging the conditions that support your life. The Buddha taught that gratitude is not just a nice feeling, but a deliberate practice, a training of attention that counters the mind's natural tendency to focus on what's wrong, what's missing, what you don't have yet. Your mind, left to its own devices, is like a spotlight that automatically seeks out problems. This made sense evolutionarily. Our ancestors, who noticed the threats, survived better than those who gazed contentedly at sunsets while predators approached. But in modern life, this negativity bias means your mind constantly scans for what's wrong, what could go wrong, what needs fixing, what's not good enough. Gratitude practice is about retraining that spotlight. You're not denying problems or pretending everything is perfect. You're deliberately choosing to also notice what's going well, what you have, what's supporting you, what's beautiful or good or valuable in your life right now. There's an old story that illustrates why this matters. In the Christian Gospels, Jesus healed 10 men who had leprosy, a devastating disease that made them outcasts. All 10 were healed, completely cured of this terrible suffering. But only one came back to say thank you. Only one felt gratitude deeply enough to return and express it. The Buddha saw this same pattern in his own teaching. Many people came to him suffering, seeking help, asking for guidance. He would teach them. They would practice. They would find relief from their suffering. But few came back to acknowledge what they'd received, to express genuine appreciation for the teachings that had transformed their lives. This isn't because people are bad or selfish. It's because the mind, once it gets what it wants, immediately moves on to the next thing it doesn't have. You get that job you wanted, and within a week, your mind is already focused on the challenges of the job, what's difficult about it, what you wish were different. You heal from an illness, and quickly your mind forgets the gratitude you felt when you were sick and just wanting to feel normal again. The practice of gratitude is about interrupting this automatic pattern. It's about pausing to actually notice and acknowledge what's here, what's working, what you've been given. Here's how to practice this, based on both the Buddha's teachings and what modern research has confirmed works. Every morning or every evening, choose a consistent time. Identify 3 things you're grateful for. 3 specific things from that day or from your life right now. The key is specificity. Don't just say, "I'm grateful for my family." That's too general, too abstract, and your mind will just glide over it without really feeling anything. Instead, "I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughed at breakfast this morning, the sound of pure joy that filled the kitchen." That's specific, vivid, real. Not, "I'm grateful for my health," but, "I'm grateful that I could walk up the stairs today without pain, that my body carried me through the day, that I could taste my food and feel the sun on my face." When you get specific, your mind actually has to pause and remember, has to recreate the experience, has to feel it again. And in that feeling, real gratitude arises, not as an idea, but as a lived experience. Try to include difficult things when you can. This is advanced practice, but it's powerful. Finding something to be grateful for, even in challenges. Not grateful that the challenge exists, but grateful for what it's teaching you, how it's strengthening you, what you're discovering through it. "I'm grateful for the patience I found today when everything went wrong. I'm grateful for the friend who listened when I was struggling. I'm grateful for the reminder that I'm stronger than I thought I was." This practice literally rewires your brain. Scientists have found that consistent gratitude practice strengthens neural pathways associated with noticing positive experiences and weakens the automatic negativity bias. You're not just feeling better in the moment. You're training your mind to naturally notice more of what's good, more of what's working, more of what you have, rather than what you lack. And this leads us to the second beautiful quality, mudita. Mudita is often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy. It means feeling genuine happiness when good things happen to others. This might sound easy, but notice what actually happens in your mind when someone else gets something you want. Your friend gets a promotion. Your sibling buys a beautiful house. Your colleague receives praise for work you think you could have done just as well. Someone else's child succeeds where yours struggled. What arises? If you're honest, often it's not pure joy for them. Often there's a little spike of envy, of comparison, of why them and not me. Maybe you cover it with a smile and say, "Congratulations," but underneath there's this uncomfortable feeling, this sense of your own lack highlighted by their gain. This is normal. The mind compares automatically, measures itself against others, keeps score. But it's also exhausting, and it cuts you off from joy. Because if you can only be happy when good things happen to you, you're limiting your happiness to a tiny fraction of all the good things happening in the world. Mudita practice expands your capacity for joy exponentially. You train yourself to feel genuine happiness, not just for your own good fortune, but for everyone's good fortune. And suddenly, there are a million more opportunities to feel joy because good things are happening to people all around you all the time. Here's how to practice mudita. When you notice good things happening to others, and you have to notice them, which means paying attention to people's lives with genuine interest rather than self-focused comparison, pause and deliberately wish them well. Not with gritted teeth, not with forced cheerfulness, but with actual warmth. May your happiness continue. May this good fortune grow. May you enjoy this fully. Notice what arises when you do this. Notice the resistance, the little voice that says, "But what about me?" Don't judge that voice. It's just the old programming, the scarcity mindset that believes if someone else has more, you have less. Just keep practicing. Keep wishing others well. Keep genuinely celebrating their successes, their joys, their good fortune. And over time, something remarkable happens. Your heart gets bigger. Your capacity for joy expands. You realize that someone else's happiness doesn't diminish yours. In fact, their happiness can become a source of your happiness too. This is one of the most countercultural practices in Buddhism, because our whole society is built on competition, comparison, zero-sum thinking. But the Buddha taught that joy is not a limited resource. There's not a finite amount of happiness in the world such that if someone else has some, there's less for you. Joy multiplies when it's shared, when it's celebrated, when you allow yourself to feel happiness for others as well as for yourself. Together, gratitude and mudita transform your daily experience. You start noticing more good, both in your own life and in the lives around you. You start feeling more joy, not because your circumstances are perfect, but because you've trained your mind to recognize and appreciate what's already here, what's already good. These aren't just positive thinking exercises. They're training in reality, in seeing clearly all of what's present, not just the problems and challenges, but also the beauty and goodness and countless conditions that support your existence right now. There's one more quality I want to share with you, one that brings everything together. The Buddha called it upekkha, equanimity. Equanimity is not indifference, and it's not cold detachment. It's a warm, spacious balance that can hold everything without being thrown off center by anything. There's a famous Zen story that captures this perfectly. There was an old farmer who lived in a small village. He had one horse that he used to plow his fields and sustain his livelihood. One day, the horse ran away. All the neighbors came and said, "Such bad luck." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing with it 3 wild horses. The neighbors exclaimed, "Such good luck." The farmer said, "Maybe." The following day, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses. He was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors said, "Such bad luck." The farmer said, "Maybe." The day after that, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army for a war. They didn't take the farmer's son because his leg was broken. The neighbors said, "Such good luck." The farmer said, "Maybe." This story continues infinitely because life continues infinitely, each event leading to another, the so-called good containing seeds of difficulty, the so-called bad containing hidden gifts. The farmer's wisdom is not that he doesn't care what happens. It's that he doesn't rush to judgment about whether any event is ultimately good or bad, because he knows he can't see the whole picture, can't know all the consequences, can't predict how this moment will weave into the larger pattern of his life. This is upekkha. This is equanimity. It's the ability to stay balanced, centered, present with what is without getting swept away by the drama of "this is wonderful" or "this is terrible." Because both of those reactions pull you out of the present moment and into stories about the future or judgments about what should or shouldn't be. The Buddha taught that there are 8 worldly winds that constantly blow through our lives: gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, pleasure and pain. Most people are blown around by these winds like leaves in a storm. Something good happens, and they're elated, convinced life is finally working out. Something bad happens, and they're devastated, sure that everything is falling apart. But equanimity is like being the mountain instead of the leaf. The winds still blow, you still experience gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. but you're not blown around by them. You remain steady, present, able to meet each experience without being defined by it or knocked off balance by it. This doesn't mean you don't feel anything. Equanimity is not emotional flatness or suppression. You feel joy when joyful things happen. You feel sadness when sad things happen. But you don't get stuck in those feelings. Don't let them become your whole identity. Don't lose yourself in the highs or the lows. You remain spacious enough to hold all of it, the pleasure and the pain, the success and the failure, the praise and the criticism, without being overwhelmed by any of it. How do you cultivate this? Through all the practices we've explored together. Equanimity grows from understanding impermanence, knowing that this too shall pass, whether it's wonderful or terrible. It grows from watching your thoughts without identifying with them, recognizing that your dramatic stories about events are just thoughts, not reality. It grows from practicing acceptance of what you cannot control, meeting life as it is, rather than how you wish it were. It grows from the simple act of returning to your breath, again and again, finding that still center that remains unchanged no matter what weather moves through. And it grows from living these teachings, day after day, moment after moment, slowly training your mind and heart to be both more engaged with life and more free from being tossed around by life's inevitable ups and downs. This is what the Buddha offered, not a life without challenges, but a way to meet all challenges with wisdom, with balance, with a peace that doesn't depend on everything going your way. A way to be fully alive, fully feeling, fully present, and yet not at the mercy of every changing circumstance. This is what it means to live the teachings, to bring them off the meditation cushion and into every moment of your actual life, into the messy complexity of relationships and work and loss and joy and everything in between. And the beautiful thing is that you don't have to wait until you've mastered everything to start living this way. You can begin right now, in this moment, with whatever is happening in your life right now. One conscious breath, one moment of presence, one choice to respond rather than react, one expression of gratitude, one moment of letting go of what you cannot control. Each small practice builds on the others, and slowly, steadily, you find yourself living with more freedom, more peace, more wisdom than you ever thought possible. Not because life became easier, but because you learned how to meet life exactly as it is, with an open heart and a clear mind. So here we are, 3 hours later, and something has shifted. Not everything. You're still you. Your life is still your life. but the relationship has changed. You haven't eliminated your thoughts, and you never will. But now you know you're not them. You're the vast sky, and they're just weather passing through. You're the ocean, and they're just waves that rise and fall. You're the awareness that watches, not the thing being watched. Peace isn't something you need to find out there in perfect circumstances. It's here, in you, available in any moment you remember to come back to your breath, to return to presence, to stop fighting with what is. So let me give you 3 simple commitments, so small you can't fail. 1 conscious breath per day. Just 1, where you're fully present, fully aware. 1 mindful moment per day. 1 dish washed with full attention. 1 sip of tea actually tasted. 1 reflection on impermanence per day. Noticing that this moment won't last, that everything is changing, that nothing needs to be desperately grasped or fearfully avoided. Start there. These small practices are sustainable, doable, real, and they build a foundation that will hold you through everything. This isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning. You can return to these teachings anytime. Listen again as you deepen your practice. You're part of a community now, everyone walking this path together, supporting each other across time and space. Be gentle with yourself. The Buddha's path is one of compassion, especially toward yourself. The Buddha once said that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal. You're the one who gets burned. The same is true for any burden you're carrying that doesn't serve you anymore. Look gently at what you're still holding, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What old hurt are you replaying? What story about yourself are you believing? What expectation are you clinging to? You can put it down now. Not because it wasn't real or didn't matter, but because carrying it forward doesn't serve you. If these teachings have touched you, come back to them whenever you need. Share them with someone who might need to hear them. Let me know in the comments how this practice is unfolding in your life. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read. Subscribe if you'd like more of these journeys together. We're building something beautiful here, a space for peace in a noisy world. Thank you for walking this path with me tonight. Thank you for giving yourself these 3 hours of presence, of possibility, of coming home to yourself. May you find peace in every breath. May you remember who you really are beneath all the thoughts. May you be free. Rest now. You're exactly where you need to be.